We're on?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the August 11th, 2016 Board of Education meeting. We entered session at 7 o'clock and went right into a short executive session, so we're starting the public meeting at this point. And so I welcome everybody. If you would be so kind, there's a tablet at the corner of the room for our guests to sign that say that you've been here. So before you leave, if you please sign that, that would be appreciated. I'd like to welcome our new board member with us. This is not the first time Ann Erickson has been sitting here with some of this board, but it is the first time she's back serving as fulfilling Evan Scott's position. So welcome, and it's great to have you. Thank you. All right, so we're moving into the preliminary matters of the meeting. 1.4, the approval of the minutes of July 21st, 2016. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, any questions about those minutes? No? Okay. Roll call.
Steve?
Abstain.
Ann? Abstain.
Hope you were there, Sean.
Yes, thank goodness.
So it's going to be 2 yeses and 2 abstains because they were not there.
Yeah,
Is
do
that
we
right?
need to do this again next month when Sylvia's
I
here?
think the Sylvia's.
I think it's the majority of the board members present, and then these are not negative votes, offsetting
Yeah,
votes,
right.
so I
Right.
think it's fine.
Okay.
So Aida?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
I would
All right, communications. I'd like to acknowledge communications. We received a letter from Jennifer Scavone dated June 30th, 2016. A letter from Brandon Lowery dated August 3rd, 2016. A letter from Ben Miller dated August 9th, 2016. And those are in the board packet. I'd like to recognize any members of the audience who wish to address the board. Is there anybody who is not here specifically for a presentation? No? Okay. All right, we're going into schools in action. Into the Wild, the 7th grade trip presentation. Mr. Hatter.
Yay.
You can let me lead.
Do you want us to come
Yeah,
up here?
please,
Yes.
yeah, that's good.
You can move the mic if you need to, whatever you want to do. I can.
You're okay.
Okay, so I'm Jack Hatter. These are my 2 colleagues, Caitlin Meyer and Rebecca Eastman.
Hi.
High school, middle school health PE, and then middle school science. Last spring, we did a wagon wheel protocol where we were looking at creating an interdisciplinary project, and Kate and Becca were kind of the minds behind this project. They presented it to our middle school staff, and we went through and wrestled with a couple different projects, and this was the one we landed on. So it's Into the Wild, and go ahead, Mario. Kind of an overview, we'll just go through this. It's going to involve all 7th grade students. So Kate, Becca, Eli, and myself will be the 4 teachers who are attending the entire trip, and then we're going to have an additional teacher to keep our supervision ratio appropriate. And then we're hoping to get more volunteers for the long bicycle ride, and we've already got volunteers from K&G, and then some other community members who have volunteered to ride along. So the first day is going to be about a 35-mile bike ride with 77 graders. So we're looking for volunteers.
How many people do you need?
I would like to have, we want to bike in groups of 7 to 10. And we'd like to have 2 adults per group. So we're looking for around 14 to 20 adults, hopefully.
K&G is a bike shop. They have a
Oh, yeah.
location in Xenia, and they have one also in Kettering and one in Centerville.
Oh, okay.
So just local connection for me.
Go ahead, Mario. So what is it? It's going to be a nature expedition. We're going to take about a 35-mile bike ride. We're going to leave on a Wednesday morning from here, ride about 35 miles, and end up at Morrow at
Morgan's Canoe Rental.
Morgan's River
Morgan's
Edge
Canoe
Campground, and where they rent their canoes and everything. We're going to camp there for the first night. Then the next day we're going to do a 6-mile canoe trip with no biking, and then the third day we're going to get back on the bikes and bike about another 15 to 17 miles down to Loveland. So,
Cool.
all along the way, we're going to be meeting with local historians. So our plans have kind of changed because we had a new social studies teacher come on board and a new language arts teacher. So our final details are being ironed out next week. But we're going to meet with local historians all the way down the ride, looking at all the different towns that settled along the Little Miami and looking at why they settled, where they settled, and then comparing that to ancient cultures and why they settled where they settled. And then we're going to look at the history of Yellow Springs and why the railroad comes through Yellow Springs, and then eventually the bike path going through Yellow Springs. So we're hoping to have like a historical display, like a museum exhibit almost in the train station that kind of points to the history of Yellow Springs and how that's made all that happen.
Wow.
So, go ahead. So we'll be leaving on Wednesday, September 21st, staying for 2 nights, and then hopefully the trip will be ending around lunch, and we're going to actually invite all of our families down for lunch, anybody who would like to come down and meet us down there, kind of as a community building thing, where the parents can get to know the teachers a little bit, the teachers can get to know the parents, and the parents can see their kids after they haven't seen them for a couple of days. And then hopefully a lot of the kids and bicycles will ride back with the parents, and then the rest of us will come back by bus. So,
Cool. Great.
just want to do this.
You're doing great.
Okay. All right. So I've covered most of this. We're leaving from Yellow Springs. We're staying at Morgan's. We drove down and looked at all the different campsites that we could potentially stay at, and Morgan's was by far the best. They had the most to offer as far as the lodging, how close it was to the bike path, how close it was to the river but not right on the river, and then as far as showers and baths and those types of things, they had the best amenities. So, and then we're going to, like I said, end at the least East Loveland Nature Preserve. So why? We feel like we can accomplish more with this trip than we could even compare or even start to accomplish if we stayed in the classroom. So we're going to do some pre-learning activities, obviously, with the students before we leave, but then this is going to not serve as just a field trip, and it's not just going to be a camp experience, but it's truly going to be information collecting the entire way. So I've put up here an entire list of all the different things that we're doing. Science, we're looking at water, watersheds, those types of things. Social studies, we're looking at the history of the area and comparing to ancient cultures, but we're also looking at government systems. So when we're in camp, the kids will have to run camp according to how different government systems would run. So the kids get to experience what a government system would actually feel like and hopefully be able to appreciate a democracy more than maybe they do now. In language arts, there's going to be an intensive study of the Underground Railroad, and particularly the Underground Railroad coming through this area. And Jamie Adolph has some connections, and the students are going to read a book, and then that author is going to come in and talk about how she gathered all of her information to write the book about the Underground Railroad. And then our students are going to use our trip to gather all their information and then compose narratives with that factual information. So a lot of different activities, like I said, that we don't feel like we could accomplish if we stayed in the school.
Capture the bottom pieces.
So yeah, I guess the big thing, the thing that kind of ties all this together is we're going to create a documentary that looks at project-based learning and from start to finish. So last year we were recording some of our planning meetings, and then we're going to have all the kids talking about how the experience is different when you actually get out in the field. So we're going to have a bunch of different final products, but the documentary will pull all those together and kind of capture all of that. So we're hoping that it's something that other schools can pick up and see the gain that project-based learning created in this project. And then in my class, we're going to actually build a low ropes course in Yellow Springs that our students will be able to use with other students, or if community members would want to come in, that our students will be able to kind of train other people on how to collaborate.
Question?
Yeah.
Does everybody ride a bike?
Yes.
All the students do?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Do
Ideally.
they currently or will they?
Oh, yeah, it will. We sent a letter home at the beginning of the summer that kind of laid out the expectation of what was going to happen when they returned to school, and told them they should probably spend some time in nature, they should get a bike and spend some time on the bike and prepare themselves for this task at hand. And I have a couple of friends who are parents that sent me pictures of their kids out riding bikes on the bike path over the summer. And so I think the initial letter and the information that we sent out at the beginning of the summer kind of spark their interest a little bit, and they've already they know that this is coming, and the hope is that they all come back with a bike and they're ready to go.
And we're planning on doing some training rides
Yeah.
each week for the
Yep.
first 5 weeks before we leave.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
That will hopefully involve the
Yeah.
parents
Yes,
and
definitely.
everybody, and try to get the families active.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
So
we're
that,
also looking to get some bikes donated for kids who maybe were unable to secure a bike during the summertime.
Right.
To meet their needs.
so that first day, 35 miles with interactions along the way, so there's a lot of stopping.
Lot of stopping.
going.
Yeah, we're imagining the 35 miles will take from 8 in the morning until dinner time.
Yeah.
So it's not just going to be counting out 35 miles straight, but maybe 4 or 5 miles.
And there's a tag wagon so when somebody blows a tire and
Right.
that kind of thing.
So we're bringing our local mechanic, bicycle mechanic, also that K&G, that when their employees ride along, that they'll be able to help as well
Right.
with repairs. And then logistically, we still have some things to work out as far as getting a grill down there, getting firewood down there, and making sure we have all the things that we can't carry on the bike. But
Yeah, definitely
yeah,
a
we
support
definitely have
vehicle
some
of some
support
sort that
vehicles.
will meet us there.
And then our math teacher, part of this project is working out food with the kids and saying, here's our budget per kid, what do we need to buy, how do we make that happen, so that they're actually involved in the planning process and looking at some of the numbers of what does this cost to make and prepare food for this many people.
Then you'll have a chance to at least do a really quick eyeball evaluation of their bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Since you're doing these practice runs.
Yes,
Right.
yes. I'm hopeful to, through my class, I'm going to start with the 7th graders at the beginning of the year, and I'm hopeful to do some bike riding and actually do stuff during class, during the actual school day. So have their bikes in and make sure they're very familiar with how they work.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing, this middle school team is incredible. You know, they are really one of the best teams we have, and probably the best team I've ever worked with in my entire education career. And they are running. They work tremendously hard for the kids, and you can see they worked all summer on this and driven down. And so they really are invested in our kids and our community and our amazing teachers. And so, I couldn't be more proud of what they've done and what they're going to do with this project. So.
One of the governmental systems, Lord of the Flies, are you going to?
Only if there's nuclear war, they're the only ones that survive.
So I guess I want to highlight that because I know in previous years and for a substantial amount of years, our middle school has sort of been what some people might have called the missing link in the school and in the system. And I think that kind of reputation continues to follow even when things have changed and changed pretty dramatically. So I appreciate you saying that out loud, and I think principals have worked really hard to get wonderful teachers here, and I think we're seeing that, and I really do. I want to appreciate you all too, because it makes a big difference. And I think it's important for us to make sure we figure out that there have been tremendous changes. So it doesn't hurt that we were ranked so highly. So
Yeah, and I want to share a story. I don't know if I shared this at the last board meeting or not. Stop me if I did. I know I shared it with some of you, but my daughter had a sleepover with some of her for a birthday party in June, and had a bunch of 7th grade kids over the house, and 7 or 6 or 7 or 8, I think 7th grade girls, and they spent a good 40 minutes talking about this trip during the sleepover.
Nice.
And they were pumped and excited about it. They'd just gotten this letter from the middle school team. An amazing idea and a great letter. It was very powerful. It's what schooling should be like. And I'm just so lucky to have my child participate in this school at this time. So
who do we contact when we get the chaperones? All my biking buddies, who do I?
Oh, yeah.
You can email any of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have to go through FBI checks.
No, they just happen to be like you the same day.
Yeah. As long as they don't start with us.
Join up.
Jack, there's a technicality. Oh, hi, nice seeing you.
It's going down tomorrow too. Imagine that. All right, well, hey, way to go. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
And whatever you guys need, obviously I'm available to help make the trips, take the car down, whatever you guys need, let me know and I'll help out 100% whatever we do. So,
Hey, thank you. Enjoy your last couple of days. All right, our next presentation.
Okay.
Welcome. Let's see, introduce.
Yeah, I will. So we are, as I think the community knows, we've been talking a lot about this. We are embarking in as part of our strategic plan. There's a specific part of our plan that talks very much, priority 5, I believe, about our infrastructure. And 5.1 specifically talks about evaluating the infrastructure and really making it meet the needs of our school and our mission. And so we need to have that done by 2020. And as we've been thinking about our facilities and the needs we have right now, they continue to grow. The costs continue to rise to repair and keep them going. And so we decided that we're going to start moving in that direction of exploring this facilities process and I think specifically doing a facilities evaluation and exploring all of our options to look at for the community, including everything up to any kind of decisions that could be made or a possible decision that could be made as well if the community decides to go in that direction. So really, but in order to do that, we need to bring in experts who can talk about this, and experts are really important. And so I've been in communication with, I believe, 3 or 4 firms now that are architects that are experts when it comes to facilities master planning. And so one of the firms that I've been really impressed with talking to has been Richley & Richley, and this is Mike and Mark Richley. And so I asked them to come tonight to just give the board an idea of what this process involves, and just the master planning process and the process of evaluating the facility and exploring it. And they're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, what a time might look like, and answer any questions you ask. You have a better idea. If you heard from me, but I'm not an expert. These guys can help, I think, a little better along those lines. So without...
Mario, can you kill the projector?
Sure, that's a great idea. Yeah, let me try to do that, I'm sorry.
And Jacob, what do you need to make this work for this?
Let me see if I can zoom out far enough.
Here we go.
This should be good right here, I think.
Back something up a little bit for you?
Yeah, maybe move this one a little bit further
Yeah,
back.
you guys can back it all the way.
We went a little high tech.
Screen's not on. Screen's on, so you guys can back them up all the way if you want.
All right.
Yeah, whatever.
So while they're doing that, let me add that I think it's important to have this process very publicly, I think. And so we think we want the community involved from the very beginning of this discussion. And so this is why it's absolutely important to have, when we need an expert to come in and talk to our board, that the community is part of that too. And so it's nice that we're filming this and the community can see what the experts are presenting in terms of ideas and where we can go from inception at the very beginning. So thank you for coming in, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Mike Richley with Richley Architects, and our office is right down the road in Dayton. So we're based out of Dayton. We specialize in K-12 schools. And we're thrilled to have done about 3.3 million square feet of renovations, additions, new builds. We've done about every kind of grade configuration imaginable, from elementaries to middles to intermediates to junior highs to high schools to K-12 combos. So we have a ton of experience. One of the things I think we're most excited about is like 26,000 or so students we've had the ability to design work that's touched them and impacted them. That's really meaningful to us. I'd like to introduce, this is my brother and business partner, Mark.
Mark Richley, thank you, and appreciate you having us here tonight. Mike and I are partners, and we've been running the firm for 12 years. Our father actually ran Richley Architects for 45 years before he retired. But we love what we do. One thing just about what I do, I'm the administrative piece of the puzzle, so I do more of the contracts and make sure Mike's doing his job, so you call me if he's not. So I'm kind of the bean counter, and Mike is really the visionary. He's the designer, and he would be the person that would be active in speaking at public community meetings and really engaged. So Grateful to be here. We also have printed out for each one of you a statement of qualifications that basically has all our past projects, resumes of our key employees. Project that we just recently finished was Northmont High School. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see that. That was put, let's see, it was January of this year when I started finishing Bethel. So we're excited to be here, so thank you. We also have printouts of all the boards, so you don't feel like you have to take notes. You can just sit back and relax and let Mike take you through the community engagement process.
Thank you, Mark. So Mario said come for a few minutes and just talk about kind of the master planning process as a whole, maybe a little bit of a timeline, kind of a what-if timeline, and then of course we're here to answer any questions you might have. Is that fair enough? Okay, so let's get to work. This board is kind of the parts and pieces or the ingredients when we think of a facilities master plan. And it really needs to start with vision. And fortunately, and I keep hearing these, your presentation was awesome about project-based learning and the pedagogy and the facilities input that's actually part of your strategic plan. So it's awesome to see that you've done this and you're actually implementing this. And it's really important that, we're not just building buildings to build buildings, but what does a future school look like when a classroom is a bike trail on a campsite? What does that look like? So really that's where we need to start. I was moved by that sketch of the banquet table that the student made with all the people coming together for a conversation over a meal, and even thought of where the pencils sat on the floor. But the word togetherness. So what does an educational village look like? So kind of that's a pretty big job to think that through, but really that's kind of the task that's before us is if we're going to think about facilities, K-12, what are we doing? What is the vision and where do we want to go? Foundationally, it needs to start with a needs assessment too. If we're asking taxpayers to part with their money, it needs to be real. And we did have the privilege of walking through all your buildings and looking at your buildings. There's some additions that were done 10 years ago, but with the exception of that, the balance, the majority of the square footage of your school building is very, very out of date and either needs a major renovation or a building replacement. So that's really where it needs to start, is for us diving in, going system by system, understanding the costs associated and the needs. Because that really is the basis of kind of any conversation, any kind of meaningful conversation is, we're not just talking about this, we have facilities that really need to be addressed. Perfect chance to talk about grade configuration opportunities. Right now you're at K6, Mills Lawn, right? 7-9 McKinney in the high school, and they have different school names, but they're one building. It's really kind of a 7-12 building. Great opportunity to rethink that. How do we want to deliver education? How do the buildings want to be organized? This is just one of many examples. Is it time to think about elementary in terms of a pre-K-5 and more of a classical 6-8 middle school and a 9-12 high school in two different buildings, kind of similar to what you have now, but minor variation. Also a great time to think courageously about, with 750 students, could you all be in one building? And what would that look like to have kind of separate academic cores for elementary, middle, and high with their own entries and their own offices, but the shared benefit of sharing, say, an auditorium, one kitchen, a couple gymnasiums. So there's a lot of power there too, but this is really the time to kind of have that conversation about how do we want our grades to be configured and what do those options look like. And then, I took these words right out of your strategic plan: creative, innovative, and courageous. Right, so on one hand, we may have a master plan option that's, let's just renovate our space. Reno, and what does that cost look like? But then what would a courageous plan look like? Maybe a complete district replacement, K-12. And then what are all the variations in between? Additions, renovations, maybe keeping one building but replacing another. maybe you have some building in town that is willing to sell for 50 cents on the dollar. That's a pretty awesome bill. You know, all these kind of iterations in between. And then the other big variable is site selection, right? We find that a person's willingness to support a bond issue is kind of directly proportional to how good they think the plan is. And a lot of times that comes down to where is the building going to be. I love Mills Lawn because it's right in the heart of town and it activates downtown, and any plan that's going to take Mills Lawn and put it further away and kind of erode our core I'm against, or just the opposite. So understanding the site options and how they play into the various plans is a big deal and something we're going to want to focus on. So we wrap that all up and we recommend a continuous and genuine community engagement process. That's very authentic. So it's not tell and sell. It's not like everyone in here gets in a group and says, I know what the best plan is, let's just go out and sell it. It's being bold enough to ask, right? To gather a group around a small group discussion and say, we're considering these 3 or 4 options and we really want to know what you think. And tell us what you think your pros and cons are. Or is there another plan we haven't considered that we should be thinking about because we haven't thought everything through? And go to them with that. And through the process, we go from multiple options, and the goal is we get to the end. There's never going to be 100% consensus, but there's going to be buy-in. And with authenticity, we've said, we've engaged them, we've talked to them, we've listened to them, and that input has been central to the plan that becomes our plan moving forward. So that's high level. In terms of structure, the Board of Education, of course, our engagement with you would be through official board meetings or board work sessions. Your job would be to approve and make the decision to go forward or not go forward. Is there a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Stop me anytime if you want. We recommend an executive core team, a superintendent, treasurer, 2 board members. That is essentially the executive function of this body moving forward that can make decisions on a day-to-day basis, potentially making recommendations to the board for consideration. It's great to have a facility advisory committee, a group of citizens that could be interested in environmental initiatives. They could be builders, they could be designers, they could be artists, voices of the community, not all 4. Right? If there's some folks that are kind of, it's good to include them in because we want to hear kind of the real story. And establishing a facility advisory committee, that becomes a great chance to kind of preview our public meetings. Get your facilities advisory committee together, walk through the options, kind of flesh them out together, and then you can present them publicly. This group very naturally evolves into a campaign committee, because these are the folks who felt ownership. I've seen it evolve. I've kind of owned it, and really will become kind of your best advocates publicly. And obviously the community is their decision, it's their vote at the end of the day. So bringing them along in every way possible. So public community engagement forums all throughout the process. Online survey, statistically valid survey. In the campaign, you want coffees, home to home, whatever, to reach the community where they are, to listen and explain and tell our story. The other thing we find is that often the community has the greatest respect for what the staff, what the teachers think of the plan. What do they think? What do they think? So kind of bringing them into that process as well, we found very helpful. A quick schedule. And this is a hypothetical. So forgive me if I'm stepping on any toes here. But this is a hypothetical plan that says, what if we deliver a facilities master plan by 2020? Which is a strategic plan. What would a plan look like to have this done by 2020? So what we have on top here is a kind of breakout of the master planning phase, all the stuff that would happen pre-bond. And then what we have on the bottom is the overall project schedule. So kind of working backwards, let's say we wanted to move in the summer of 2020. into the new buildings. When we back up about 18 months of construction, we want to start construction January of 2019. So we'd be bidding that winter, which is a great time to bid, right? As contractors are kind of looking for work for the next year. Approximately 1 year of design, and the theoretical community vote would be November of 2017. So action between 2017 and today is all the effort in this master planning piece. And then this is some more detail on that piece. Again, kind of working backwards. Let's say the vote is in November of 2017. For that to take place, the board has to start doing the readings for the issue in July of 2017, which means we have to know our plan, what the final plan is going to be and what it's going to cost in a year from now, a little under a year from now. So this becomes that master planning phase, really starting today, going through next July. And what we would recommend is now, this fall, there would be getting a facility advisory committee together and actually having a CF as community forum, and that's facility advisory committee, starting having a community discussion. Some of the first ones can be, this is the process we're talking about, kind of here's a conceptual timeline. The early ones will be showing, we recommend multiple options. Don't have to be 5, but several options, and breaking out into small groups and presenting the plans and talking about pros and cons and listening and then getting back together. This is work, right, of continuing to take those plans and refine them and come back over time. So the goal is we have multiple touch points, and by the time we get to this last community forum in late spring of 2017, we're kind of down to that plan, whatever that plan is. Any questions on?
Just reassure me that as you're sketching out the process here, that's part of your task is to facilitate all of that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Well,
Me and you.
That's a good point. Can you guys talk about which, I mean, I don't know, I think it's probably appropriate to say this, what kind of services do you all offer in terms of this facilities evaluation and exploration planning process that could happen?
So we would lead all of what we're talking about, with some exceptions. So we're not demographers and statisticians, so if there's a desire to do a statistically valid online or a statistically valid survey, there are professional surveying companies who could assist. But we are leading this facility master planning process, and then we can talk about the campaign and our role in the campaign. That is not, it cannot be a board-funded activity, right? The board funds the planning work, the work of what our schools are and what we're doing, but we're also active during the campaign phase as kind of a separate process. We do that as a volunteer, because obviously you can't use taxpayer money for me to be running a campaign trying to get folks to vote yes. So, Mario, are there any, would you like me to drill into anything more detail?
I don't think so. Do you all have any questions that you want to ask specifically?
Well, I guess again, in terms of your, again, just reassure me that as we would move through this process, you can become more and more specific, not only about how much this would cost, but about how the financing gets done. You can help us, as a board,
Yes.
help us understand what our financing will look like.
We, so when we carry these master plan options publicly, we budget them. Because it's really important for the community to say, well, if you're asking me my opinion on A versus B, what is it going to cost me?
Mm-hmm.
So we're running the budgets, we're working with your treasurer to figure out your assessed valuation. We know what the interest rates are, we know terms on the loan, and so we can be running real-time millages for each of these options. So option A might be X number of mills, it might be X number a month.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're asking the community for their input, you're getting pretty specific.
Okay.
So we help with that. We are not bond counsel, so the treasurer would engage bond counsel in terms of selling the bonds and all the kind of technical aspects of the of that.
The team organization, you mentioned the staff engagement and how important it is, and obviously the involvement of teachers and the students. Where else do they fit in there? I mean, you outlined the core team, but I know in our community, I can see the core team having a couple of teachers, a couple of students as well. And is there, maybe you could talk a little bit more about
Well,
that?
for sure, the facility advisory committee. The core team is a group that's going to meet, say, every 2 weeks during business hours, and it's literally running the job. The challenge of introducing a student for the whole thing. Now we can, what to do is the core will bring in folks at certain periods that relate to certain topics. So there may be an athletic director that comes in, or teachers that come in, or students that come in. Facility advisory committee would be an awesome spot
That's where they would be.
to have whoever, teachers, students, be a great fit. So just lastly, kind of in closing, I wanted to talk about, it's been fun to come out here and have some meetings and dream and think about this, but just some opportunities. And a lot of times, these opportunities and these stories help kind of drive and fuel energy and passion around the project. These are just kind of little things we talked about along the way that or fund us. One is, so you don't have an auditorium in your district, you have Mills Lawn gymatorium. And wouldn't it be awesome to dream of a fixed seat performing arts space that would be a total community resource?
Yes.
We dreamed that dream many nights.
So this is a great time, I mean, at this stage, it's a great time to be thinking about that. Which school is it attached to? If it were K-12, wouldn't that be awesome? Because everybody would get, those kinds of conversations. We've done a couple of these that have been surprisingly popular. We did Trent Arena and Kettering. There's an indoor walk jog track at the top. And the seniors throughout the life of the project can kind of be an issue of, well, what's kind of in it for me? Kids are grown. And to include a wellness component of, I'd say we're building a gym anyway. If we move the exterior walls and put an indoor walking track along, we design the building so it can be partitioned so the public can come in and not get in the classrooms and allow the public to walk, is exceedingly been popular on some projects. So the idea of community wellness and what kind of community resource would that be if it were available? We are believers that the wood shop is not dead, and it breaks our heart when we see all these buildings in the state and they're boarded up, but what if there were a high school space that was also a community maker space that was available? All kinds of stewardship issues, recycling, solar electric. We've done projects where we collect the rainwater and water the gardens, but also use it to flush all the toilets in the school. And those are kind of fun things to talk about. Not only providing great art rooms, but space to make it conspicuous and put it out. You're an art town, it would be great. The schools walked in and there's tons of space for the art to be visible. At Northmont, a really nice kind of community space in the building. Not like your schools are bad or wrong because they're just like anywhere else, but it's just corridors. And could we make them wider or think about something to do to have some community space to give back? And this is a fun idea we talked to Hare about is, I'm a believer that, what we eat affects how we feel. We've had that experience and the idea of rethinking how food is prepared and served for the students. What if there was a student garden and we project-based learning, right? So we've got their science teachers and the biology teachers learning all this stuff and they're making this food and we've got this great kitchen that's been designed around these ideas and bringing that food into the kitchen and serving it to students. So this is an amazing, we think of it as an opportunity. You're just surrounded by gorgeous farms. That is something that schools really aren't doing that much, but it is a really neat opportunity. So in closing, questions?
Go ahead.
Porter, do you have?
No. So
I was going to ask about, maybe talk a little bit about your experience with state support.
Sure.
For an initiative like this, beyond local.
So we recommend, Mario,
Before you say that, can I just say one more thing along this line? I think that's important is the community piece. We've heard a lot from community over the past several years. There's a need, in the community for a better place for seniors to gather specifically. The senior center is an older facility in town, and it's not quite meeting the needs that the community would like to see. And so wouldn't it be great to have a senior center potentially tied to a building? Because we have a lot of volunteers who come in who are our community elders who come in and really work with our kids regularly, and that would be a really neat idea as a potential option if we were to go down that road. So I just want to throw that out there, Sean. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a great one. Thinking of examples of other partnerships outside of the school system that you've experienced.
that public libraries, we've done a lot of public libraries. I'm not sure the state of, this is Greene County library in town. It would be a great conversation to have with them.
Also with Trent Arena, City of Kettering, we partnered with the it was like a YMCA.
What's Cities Rec Center?
Cities Rec Center, that's actually a part of the facility of Trent. So that was.
Yeah, so next to that walk jog track, there's a workout room and things that you can use.
So in today's Yellow Springs news, which I would recommend you pick up, there is a growing desire for kind of a community kitchen. Commercial kitchen. That we could tie right into as far as I can tell in this conversation too.
Yeah, that's the idea.
A community baking oven, which, people come and bake bread together now. If that isn't a metaphor. But they do it. I mean, they do it on the East Coast a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, state funding.
Yeah.
So we highly recommend that Mario reach out to the School Facilities Commission and for an update on the timing of when funding might be available for Yellow Springs and explore that opportunity. It's too good of an opportunity not to explore. I think the public's going to want you to, right? Because they're offering Xenia will be on the ballot in November, and they're going to get $28.5 million from the state. So if you're a community member, you're like, well, where's So in terms of due diligence and master plan options, we highly recommend you explore that. Having said that, we've seen other districts who've explored it and for various reasons have opted out. And some of those reasons have been when the local share becomes so high that they're wondering, do we want to go through the process for 10% of the funds? Those kinds of questions.
Let me interject real quick. I think our best estimate is that our local share would probably less. This is an estimate, this is a guess, but I think it's a pretty educated guess. It's around 15%. So that's a very low state share. Our share would be 85%.
Would be 85.
Yeah, and the state would be 15%. That's an extremely low share, but something we can certainly need to explore and see what that really
Does it put
is.
limitations? And when you have the state share, do they impose?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And for example, in this scenario, let's say you really want to do a fixed seat auditorium. That would have to be locally funded. Let's say you want to do a walk jog track, that's locally funded. If you wanted to do, or some of the other ideas up there that were square footage, those would be locally funded initiatives. So
Because the state will not fund those sorts of.
Correct.
I see. So there's a laundry list of things that state funding cannot be used for.
Mostly around anything non-academic. So they're not
Right.
going to pay for the site, not going to pay for anything athletic related, performing arts related. They do the band, orchestra, choir room. But so what often we see is when you start counting your 85% local share plus these additional locally funded initiatives, that 15% can turn to 10%, right? When you start to look at, you're taking up 100% of your locally funded initiatives. So districts ask that question, but we highly recommend we explore it.
Yeah.
The districts that you've worked with, have they run capital campaigns also? So they're doing private fundraising to supplement the bond, the public support? Do you see that happening?
Typically for public schools, no. Typically we're seeing public schools go the bond issue route, whether it's income tax or property tax or a combination of both. There'll be plenty of augmenting opportunities. So let's say you could find, I'm not sure what board's policy, but let's say there's an outdoor nature center or an outdoor classroom or a baking area for a bakery where you have the opportunity for partners to buy in and donate towards pieces and name them or whatever they want to do. But typically, we're seeing those kinds of things as supplementary to the base plan. Now, if this were a private school, the Alters and the Miami Valleys and those things, that's all private.
Yeah, I also think, I just want to highlight the last thing with the library has come up a few times to me as well, that there are schools that are building and adding public libraries to the actual school, and there's some potential funding associated with that as well. I think Eli and I have actually talked about it a few times, and we have some connections here in town even to the Green Public Library that are pretty strong, and so there's some potential opportunities there to partner as well.
Great. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Great.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Stay away from that.
Oh, yeah, no.
No, just like,
Thank you all.
yeah, thank you so much, appreciate it.
If we didn't adequately express it, we'd be really excited to work with you.
Yeah, I think there's a problem.
Thanks, guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All
So
right.
if I can just add to the end of that, if you don't mind for a second. What I want to say is that there's, so I think next month I'd like to bring another firm in to hear, just so the board can get another perspective of what other people are doing and give a little bit more balanced idea of everything that's out there. And then I think we'll talk a little more about what else happens next when I get to my superintendent updates, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Do we need to get?
Oh, yeah, we did.
I just turned it on.
Thank you, Jay. All right.
Great. Well, thanks for arranging that, Mariah. That's very helpful, and I actually met with them earlier on too, and found it helpful to hear again about one. And they're obviously very excited, and they obviously seem like they know Yellow Springs.
Well, yeah, they're good listeners, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Treasurer's Report, 3.1, the financial report.
Okay, July is always a very brief month. At the end of July, we always receive our second quarter income tax payment. This one came in was 5% lower than last July, but last July was really a lot higher than many other Julys, and it was 11% higher than the year before, so I don't really gauge that as we're going to have lower increases this year, but it's something that I wanted to report on. We did get in our monthly foundation, we received our special education excess costs from other districts. I previously reported on that. Some of these things I thought I might repeat just because Ann hasn't been here. But when we educate a special education child from another district, we are allowed to bill back all of the costs that are above the regular cost of the student and the money that we receive from the state. So I billed probably for, I think, 23 students to several other school districts, and the payments totaled over $140,000. So you bill that a year in arrears. You have the whole next fiscal year to basically make those calculations and get the money. But this year came in really late. Normally we would have received the money before June 30th when our fiscal year ends, but this time we didn't get it until July. We received $117,000 in July and $23,000 back in May. So I was kind of disappointed about that because it's gonna skew my 5-year forecast. We're gonna have this really high payment probably this fiscal year, and it'll be 2 years worth, and then we'll go back to normal. So as long as I'm remembering to do it like that, then it will be fine. But just a lot of people have the opinion that we lose money when we take in special education kids, but we actually receive more money by being able to bill the other districts for their costs, and more money than we even make ourselves for our own special education students. So I had reported on this previously also, that our Greene County Educational Service Center costs were going to be a lot lower last fiscal year. But the treasurer doesn't actually do a reconciliation until July. So we knew we were going to get back about $70,000 off of a $240,000 annual estimated contract. There was a couple different circumstances that led to that. We share a preschool with Cedar Cliff, and what happened is when we do the contract with the ESC, we don't know what those numbers are going to be yet, and the Cedar Cliff had a larger share of that preschool unit, so we pay less and they pay more, so that's some of the credit. And then we also have students that are in the Greene County Learning Center, and we had a student, we were one less student than what we had anticipated, and those students cost about $25,000 to $30,000 a year. So we received a large credit this year, but it was more of an unusual situation, so the budget, when I do the budget for this year, I'm probably going to put those numbers back up to what the numbers normally are. But I stopped paying 2 bills at the end of last year, which was $22,000 a piece, and then he brought me a check for $35,000. So when you look at my monthly reports in other, I do that as a refund of a prior year expense, so it goes under other non-operating revenue. So I wanted to know what that large dollar amount is.
Sorry, Don, I didn't put it up there, it's up there now.
It's July, there's not a whole lot to report on, so, other than that, I really don't have anything. Oh, Jack's presentation, he applied for a Martha Holden Jennings grant to absorb some of those costs for that, and he's also doing a low ropes project. So he got $2,393 for that from Martha Holden Jennings, so. I don't have anything else to report on for July.
Anybody else?
Just one small thing, the investment, 1.25, so this, are you starting to see, that almost seems like a great return. Unfortunately, but it's like, that's the highest that we've seen in years.
Right.
And I know it's 2 years out, the highest dollar amount down there, but are you starting to see better rates?
Yeah,
Does
that one
reflect?
I did, that 400,000 I did probably a year ago. So that was the rate at that time, and then the new one that I just did that's gonna come due on 5/15/18 is 0.75%, but that's also, it's gonna be probably a year less of a length of time. So, I mean, these are the best rates that I could get, but I was happy with the one being 0.9 for a year from now. So, yeah, they are doing better, and the one that I've noticed the most is I keep trying to move money over from because we bank with US Bank because they're right here, and we have daily depositing that our staff, they just go down to the bank, and it's just very convenient. So that's where we do all of our in and out money. But we also have our Max Saver Plus account with Fifth Third, and that's earning 0.5, it's been earning about 0.5%, and our US Bank, which is an overnight sweep, has been getting 0.01. It's been getting 0.01 for probably 2 years now.
Wow.
So I move all the money I can, as I can, out of US Bank over to the Max Saver Plus. There's an account called Star Ohio account, which is specifically for schools and public funds. And what the Max Saver Plus account does to stay competitive, they match that Star Ohio. So that's why their rates have been going up, and US Bank, they haven't really done anything. So, because we're not in a specific public funds. In US Bank, we're just in an overnight sweep. So that is supposed to help keep our costs down. But I do try to keep as much money as I can. But like we just got all that big income tax payment July 31st, and then all of our second half 2016 real estate tax money. So I just got settlement paperwork today actually for that. Once I see what that is, I'm going to put a bunch of money back in the Max Saver also to sit, and then maybe invest some more short terms. I'm doing the best I can with these terrible rates.
How long are you expecting the auditors to be around still?
I kicked him out yesterday.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, it's
exciting.
for reasons that are, my office is just really busy right now, and it's going to stay busy like that for a few weeks, and I asked them to leave, and they're probably not gonna come back till October, so.
Oh.
They very graciously left, so I felt bad asking, but they did have some other places that they could go, and they're gonna come back in October. so
Oh,
hopefully they're
great.
like- Yeah, it's really happy.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, 3.2, property and liability insurance. Guess I need a motion for this.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All right, any discussion or any questions, anything anybody needs? This looks like standard stuff. Huh?
And this is just the company that we always use.
We've used Anderson Williamson for a lot longer than I've been here. And one of the reasons we stay with them is just because we get the best customer service from them. They take very good care of us. He works really hard to try to keep our rates as low as possible. And I think this one is, I wish I had time to look it up before, but it's really comparable to what it was last year. We've had some slight increases. It's just, one of the biggest things is just natural disasters. It just puts it hurts your insurance rates, and they take really good care of us. So I could bid out, but they're right down the street, and I feel like we have a really good relationship, and I just don't desire to do that right now. They understand our community, and they're very flexible with us, so I'm happy with that.
So there's no policy that requires we bid out every 5 years or anything like that
No.
by the state?
No, it's just, I mean, it's fiscally prudent to do so, but I hate to get some conglomerate that knows nothing about Yellow Springs and doesn't help us out like they do. They really do bend over backwards for us.
All right, roll call.
Ann,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
All right. Moving into superintendent's report, 4.1.
So I wanted to kind of tag off what Don had said. I think it's also fiscally prudent to know, you know, when you do have a crisis, it's going to help you, and they're not going to, they're going to work with you, and you know they're going to cover their claims and stand behind their names as opposed to having to take care of it yourself. So there's two sides to that, that coin.
I think it's good to use local.
So very quickly about negotiations, I just wanted to, now that I was going to talk about this last meeting, but this happened before you voted on the YSCA contract, and so I thought it might be more appropriate to wait until after you actually voted on the contract before publicly talking about. There's a few highlights from the contract that I think are great for everybody. We've added several new stipends to the contract, and basically these are opportunities for our kids to be more involved in after-school activities and things of that nature. We have a co-ed bowling now as a winter sport, which is a really big deal for us. Something we almost did last year, but it didn't quite happen. But it's official now. We have an assistant girls softball coach to balance out the assistant boys baseball coach, which has been in the contract for a while now, but we haven't funded it because we felt there's sort of an equitability issue with that. And so now we're going to be able to fund both, which is a really great thing. And both programs have grown tremendously over the past couple of years. And I think both coaches definitely deserve this. They've been running with 3 or 4 volunteers for a very long time. And it's nice that we're going to at least be able to pay one person that helps support their work, which I think is a step in the right direction for them for sure.
So you have plenty of interest from the students?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Yeah, no, years ago it wasn't that way. Baseball has a lot of kids, and enough. They tried to run some JV games this year. I don't think it quite worked out in the end. But the girls softball team had 20 kids or something.
Yeah.
20 plus.
Had a lot of kids on the team, and so it was pretty extensive. They did really well. They would have won the league. The girls would have had they actually had officially. They did win the league, but it wasn't an officially sanctioned sport, and so they didn't necessarily officially win as a result. We're also going to add, there's been a real big buzz in our community around Lego leagues and things of that nature over the past probably 6, 7, 8 years. But there's a few teams going through right now, which is a really interesting thing. I think we have 3 teams right now. But I keep getting asked questions all the time. Is the school going to fund this? Is the school going to step in and lead some of this with teachers and some support in buildings? And so we finally have that in our contract so that we're going to have a junior FLL team funded here at Mills Lawn, which are for younger elementary kids. A first Lego League team, which is from anywhere from 4th to 8th grade kids. We have 2 teams of that age range in Middle Springs. A first Tech Challenge, which is the first time we've done that, which is more of a middle school to early high school team. And then a robotics team, which is for juniors and seniors. It's really extensive and intense. And we have a few kids in our school that are on robotics teams and are very, very interested in pushing this. And this is going to be great for our kids. Spidey has been going on for a while now. You funded it as a administrative stipend, I think, or a board stipend, I should say, for a couple of years now. But now it's part of the contract, and so we're funding it through that.
What is that?
Eli actually could probably talk better about it than I can. He's actually the one that's the advisor. So
Spidey was a student-created program that it stands for Students Promoting Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Through Education. And the students using a curriculum from a similar group in Cleveland created a curriculum here where they work with 4th grade and 6th grade 3 times a year, 2 times with 4th grade last year, 3 times with 6th grade, where they come, they work with them around issues around bullying, all sorts of things, bias, inclusion, how we look and treat others, look at and treat others. And it's the students create the curriculum. I lead the high school students in discussions around kind of best practices in the curriculum, but they come up with the ideas and they practice them, and then I bring them here and they work with the students for the whole day.
it's a great.
The students love it.
Great leadership opportunity for kids.
Yeah, I know. That's the high school kids and the younger kids, really.
We're also going to add Girls on the Run, another one that I'm really excited about. This is, if you haven't familiar with Girls on the Run, it's a self-esteem kind of character building program specifically designed for girls around running a 5K together. And it's this whole curriculum for girls, I believe, between grades 4 and 8, or 3rd grade and 8th grade, I think it is. But we're focusing it on Mills Lawn specifically because there's not very many after-school activities here at all for kids to get involved with. And here's a great athletic endeavor for, we start getting 6th grade students to get involved with here at Mills Lawn. And I think it's a perfect age for those kids to get introduced to this curriculum and have those opportunities for girls. And so we actually got to get that fulfilled. And then the last one is National Debate Team, which is a new stipend brought into. This is, for those who may not be familiar with this National Debate NDT thing, it is intense debate where kids are doing mountains of research about creating philosophical critiques about Heidegger, or you name all kinds of different things that they use as part of their affirmative case that they build and their disadvantages, and there's all kinds of, it's intense research, policy research on a topic that's a major topic for the year, and they carry around literally tubs full of research, that they 3 or 4 tubs full of research that they've done throughout the year to their tournaments and compete. And it's very great opportunity for our kids. It takes a lot of work. We hopefully have some advisor that somebody that might be interested in taking on that has an idea about what's involved, because it's really intense. And but I'm glad we got it in, because now we can start to get our kids involved with that. It's like Model UN, but like twice as much. It's really intense in terms of the work or what's involved. But I think it'll help meet the needs of a lot of our students. I think specifically with a kid like Zach Ringler or Con, he's a perfect student to be involved
I
with
live
this.
national debate.
This is like designed for him. So we need to sign him up, seriously.
I'd like a Travis Monk club. It's silent.
And so he is designed for kids like him. And what a great opportunity. And so in addition to some of those stipends, we're really proud of we added a step in the contract to have mediation before arbitration happens. And I think it will help us meet and resolve any outstanding contract issues without having to go to a really high stakes process like an arbitrator, which I think we all agreed was a good idea, and we're excited about that and what it's going to be able to do for us and relations in a very positive way.
So who are you going to use for the mediation?
I think we're going to use the Federal Mediation Service, and so Dan Judy's the guy's name. He's came on since the last guy was there. What's his name? Steve's gone now. The last one I want to highlight is we have a parental leave. We added that to the contract, and I got a nice email from Aida today about that actually. And we are probably pretty darn progressive relative to most schools in this regard, and I got to give our teachers a lot of credit for this because they were really pushing this, I think, in many ways, and they took the lead in a lot of this work. Where we are, along with the standard 6 weeks of paid leave for a birthing parent, we added 4 weeks of paid parental leave for non-birthing parents. So this is a really big step. So it includes adoption, it includes fathers, it includes non-birthing mothers. This whole piece, it's really a fantastic addition to the contract. And you got a letter tonight from one of our teachers who's going to be the beneficiary of that, and he made a very nice statement, I think, in his letter about how happy he was and proud to work in a district that's doing this. So
Over the strenuous objection of our lawyers, by the way, that we included this in the contract.
well, and I want to say, I think it's important to say that the teachers really wanted this, and our board really wanted this. Our board was steadfast, strongly, and unified in support of this, and they felt like it was absolutely important. There was no doubt where our board stood on this issue, and I think that's an important point to make and share that publicly.
Part of the point of public education is to help build good citizens and raise students, but part of that is also building families, and I think that's the basic level right there, is to give families time to get started together. So I think that's putting our money where our mouth is.
So it's a great thing. So that's kind of the highlight of negotiations. I'll talk about OC next month if you'd like, and talk publicly about some of the highlights from that, but I think I want to share that from YCA. I'll also say it was a really the best contract negotiations I've been involved with. I think using the IBB process was the right move for us again, and really lended to a positive.
Do you want to say what that acronym is? Because my
Oh,
fellow
yeah,
board
sorry.
member here, Ann, I recall her always asking.
Yes, you have to
identify
identify
Okay.
acronyms. And I have to say, the first time I heard in its interest-based bargaining, I thought it was inter-space bargaining.
Which in your experience is also possible.
Yeah, I thought, wow.
So interest-based bargaining is a great tool to use to bargain. It goes against the face of the traditional bargaining idea of, us versus them, and it's all about sharing interests and identifying common interests and really trying to work as one team to support the interests that are presented on the table and try to find a way to make that happen. And we had some great candid conversations, and I think in the end listened really well to one another. We were kind and gentle with one another, and I think that really made a difference, and we were able to come out happy and smiling in the end. Not every side, we didn't all get everything we wanted, for sure, but sometimes that's what happens, and I think we had a lot of win-win solutions though that ultimately came through. So I was pretty pleased with the process. PBL Ohio, stop me if you want to ask any questions about negotiation. So we did PBL Ohio. Was so for those who don't know, that's an annual state conference in Ohio that's ran by the Central Ohio Educational Service Center, the ESC, and they have a contract. They work with Buck Institute for Education, BIE, which is a major national organization that is kind of the center of PBL world across project-based learning across the entire country, and this is amazing how much it happens, right? And so we were asked to do a presentation at PBL Ohio, and as part of the presentation, we were worried. We talked about this idea, pitched this idea of having our kids come and sit on a panel, and having some of our teachers and administrators come as well, and then questions being kind of thrown at the kids from the audience members. And we were in this great big auditorium and talk about new buildings. If you go to those schools, what's the name? New Albany. An amazing community, amazing auditorium there, and about 250 people in the audience listening, asking. So we did a small presentation, and then they asked a lot of questions of our kids, very free, open, and our kids, of course, responded as they always do, fearlessly, and with a lot of really great ideas and comments and thoughts. And it was really a proud moment for us, and we knew they'd do great, but I think the community didn't quite know that was out there what our kids were like. And I mean, if you get on Twitter and you put the hashtag PBL Ohio, you'll see all kinds of amazing comments about our kids and you know, the work they did out there. And consequently, we've had lots of spin-off from that as a result. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything from that particular experience, because I know Tim was there and I know Eli was there as well.
No, you know, when we get our kids out there, outside of Yellow Springs as well, you forget. I mean, they're hilarious, they're insightful, they're provocative, they're terrific. They're terrific.
We had kids from 5th graders all the way through 12th graders involved, so.
Yeah, fourth. I was going to say fourth.
Oh, he was, he's in
He'll
the
be
4th.
fifth
He's
grade.
a rising.
Yeah. And he was super eloquent. He was really wonderful.
This is Brett Anthony. Did you want to add anything?
You said it great. You said it really well.
Okay.
So it was a great time.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. So so then we had a chance to have a more informal session with about 40 people, and they asked our kids more questions, and it was just a really nice opportunity. We've had some good conversation with districts like Piccowa, and there was another district also that was really interested in what we're doing, that we're planning to try to send folks down to visit us as a result of that conversation we had there. I think there's potential for Granville, which is Granville City Schools in Denison, where Denison University is. And so there's some interest there, I think, and so we'll see what happens as a result of this. But the best thing that happened, I think, in the end, is that the next week I met with Teresa Dempsey from the Central Ohio Educational Service Center and representing the PBL Ohio group. And the Central Ohio ESC would like to set up a relationship with us, a partnership where they basically help drum up business for the Deeper Learning Training Center.
Oh,
And so they want to, and they approached us about this, so they want to promote to all their PBL contacts, which are a lot, visits to our schools, and I've given them several dates, and they want to come see our schools and have people pay them. So we would give them a wholesale price essentially for them to do that, and everybody they bring in, we give them a wholesale price. They charge the same retail rate we charge ultimately, and then they bring them in that way, and they get a small profit off the top of that. But ultimately then the money goes in our budget and helps to support the Deeper Learning Training Center and all of our PBL initiatives. So that's great because it won't just be us doing it. They'll be going as far, reaching out to northern Ohio and Columbus area and that whole area. And they have a huge reach with project-based learning that will be able to support the work. But she's excited about doing that. In addition to that, they would like us to set up, they said, well, at least 3 in the fall and possibly 3 in the spring, professional development dates and opportunities for our teachers to go and present very higher level PBL presentations to the group. And so we would go and present for a half day on critique or a half day on interdisciplinary project work. Something much more 201, higher level, intermediate, advanced project-based learning work. And they would essentially pay our rate that we board already approved to us for our teachers to do that. They would do all the advertising. They would do everything involved. All we would have to do is show up and deliver.
Checks.
And we go from there. But again, it's great, and if it works the way we think it's going to work, our coaches are really excited about it, our teachers are excited about it. Our hope is to as quickly as possible, it's going to take time, is to expand this so that more and more teachers have the opportunity to be involved in this work. But it will take time. I think we're working on getting all of our coaches there. We've developed a model where if you're interested in presenting, you have to attend a session as just sort of a support person, and then once you learn that particular presentation, then you can next be one of the people that can go out and do it next. And so we're trying to create some internal systems to vet and sort of create new leadership opportunities for our teachers, and at the same time make sure that what's going out is exactly the message that we want to send. And so our coaches, who are really smart people, are working through all of this incredibly well. So that's exciting. That's what's happening right now with that, and we're thrilled about that. Last thing is facilities planning services. So you just heard from Ridgely Architects, who I asked some folks, and their names came forward, and so we met with them a couple times, and then I met with a few other firms as well, and so we invited them to come talk to the board. And my goal will be next month to have another firm come talk to the board, and then between now and then, I think we need to put out what's called a statement of qualifications request, which we have to put in our local paper, and it gives any potential firms that are experts, any expert firms in terms of facilities planning, they can give us a statement of their qualifications, and then we can take in that list and decide what we want to do from there. And let's say we do want to go forward and start this process of planning and exploring it with our community, our needs, then we would select from that group of submitted statements of qualifications to do that. I think it's something that the board should probably approve. The board doesn't technically have to approve that, but I think it's a good idea to make that a public vote to go forward and support expending any funds necessary to be able to start that process in terms of planning and determine, first of all, what are the needs? Do we have needs? And let's identify what those needs exactly are. What are the costs of maintaining those needs regularly and continuing to deal with that? What possible options are there to deal with those needs? Anything from repairs, continuing to repair things, to renovation, to nothing could be a real option. The community could say, we don't want to do anything with this right now. To the most ambitious idea, which would be to build 2 new buildings and facilities, or one big, huge K-12 facility as a result. So all of that, those are all options we would explore, that we would look into. I want to be very clear to the community, none of that is set. We have no idea where this is going to go. I think the community will ultimately decide where we go with this. We just want to start to look at this and see what can happen. The truth is, I can't lead this process on my own. None of us can really lead this process on our own. We need experts to help us with that process, and the architects are the experts who do this work professionally and can help us through that process of trying to decipher what the community needs are and what exactly we need to do to go forward, if the community even chooses to go forward at all. And so I think those are our next steps. So you'll see probably in the next few weeks we put out a statement of qualifications and
Request for RFQ in advance of the.
It's not a request for qualifications. There's a difference between a request and a statement. So a statement of qualifications is the actual term, that's the legal term used to be able to make it happen. So basically they just have to send us their qualifications. And that's essentially all there is that's associated with that. So it makes it easier for us to make some decisions about where we want to go and maybe a firm that we feel like connected with. I think for me, an important qualification is a firm that has, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, on TV, so definitely we want somebody who has a community connection in terms of not being in the community or connection directly to members of the community. I mean, they can connect with community members and connect with people in a way that's interpersonally at a high level, very important for me, and I think should be for our entire community and our board, and somebody that understands Yellow Springs at a high level. Those are 2 things that are important, and that has expertise. So those are some of the big things we're looking for as we go forward. And we'll see, this will be a fun process. We'll see what happens and see what the community wants to do. And we'll see what the money looks like and see if it's even possible for us. And what's realistic. So we'll go forward. Any other questions about that? So you'll have, so the timeline would work like this. You'll have a September opportunity to see another firm. We'll already have the statement of qualifications in. And then probably, it may be in October at the regular board meeting, I may say, let's try to commit to go forward with the service from there. So that's kind of our timeline we're looking at right now, in terms of potentially bringing on experts to help us with the process.
I guess I have a question. Do you, in addition to the qualifications, do you have to do an RFP and collect bids and have a certain
That's
number of
really important to
bids?
say that. I'm glad you brought that up, John. You do not. And the reason why is we're not talking about bidding in any way, shape, or form. So we're not talking about facilities, we're not talking about building, and I think that's a really important point to make. All we're talking about is just an engagement process for the community. And having somebody help us throughout that engagement process who has expertise in this area of architecture and needs. That's it. We're just talking about a community engagement process. And if that community engagement process goes in such a way that the community feels like it's the best thing to do to potentially build new buildings or put a bond levy on the ballot, then we would do that. And at that point, you have to do an RFP to actually get a potential builder that could do this. And so that's where you kind of go from there. that doesn't happen until way down the road.
And this engagement process, if I remember correctly, is almost a year-long
Yeah.
process, right?
We'll remind, like we hired the Center for Public Affairs at Wright State
Exactly.
to facilitate the engagement process of the development of the 2020 plan. You know, we did research, we did community meetings. There were a lot more volunteers involved, but it seems like a similar process.
Yeah, it's exactly, very similar process, I think, it sounds like. So it's exciting, I'm excited about this and moving forward, and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to explore our needs and, you know, and hopefully engage our community in this process.
Great. All right, so we are moving on to the administrative portion of our consent calendar, and this is really different than what we used to do. We go through and we just used to do like area items 4.2 through 4.6. We don't do any kind of pulling out unless there's reason for it, and then we vote on the whole section. So, okay, so this is the administrative portion, 4.2 through 4.6. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so anything you want to say about any of these?
Yeah, I think it's important to note a couple things. So with the OPC contract as well as the policy employees, what you're talking about is a step advancement and then a step restoration. So there's two steps essentially, and then the raise on top of that when we're doing this. And when you're talking about the administrators, we're just talking about the raise. They don't have a step and then another step. It's just a raise. And so just an FYI so everybody understands what that covers. All of this would be, well, the administrators would be retroactive to August 1st, and everybody else, I think, well, policy would be retroactive to August 1st too, right? Or does that start?
It's not, yeah, their contract start is August 1st, but we haven't started paying it
Right,
anyway,
so
so it's,
Yeah.
why we're rushing to get it in tonight.
But essentially, you're voting now, like technically, those will affect August 1st. So that's all I can go ahead and share.
Okay.
So since I'm a little bit new, I know who John is and I met, and I know who Jack is, but how does Jack fit in as an administrative employee?
That's a great question. So he's a half-time teacher, and he's a half-time administrator right now. So he's also a dean of students essentially at the high school while he's doing that. And we give him a stipend to do the administrative work, and so that stipend will get the 3.5% on top of that. So,
Okay. And I've seen Donna's name, but I don't.
This is Donna.
Yeah, I do. So, in your position?
Student services.
Okay, that's right, I did read that somewhere.
Special ed and then other things.
Okay, and what
So then
about?
everybody still calls it special ed.
Special ed. Okay, what about Nate Baker?
He's our athletic director.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, roll call.
Sean,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Sylvia, or are you done? Sorry.
Yes. All right. Okay, personnel, 4.7 through 4.10. Is there a motion?
Move.
Second.
All right. If there's anything here that's, anything?
Yeah, I just want to say, so there's, you know, we had a soccer coach last month who was approved to coach girls soccer, and then he, I think quickly a day or two after the vote, he got a full-time job, that's a different job that did not allow him to coach anymore, and so he immediately had to resign. So we were on the search again for a new coach, and we ultimately hired another one who was interviewed, another person who was interviewed who was really tight race between those two, and ultimately I think Nate feels really good about the coach that we're going to recommend being hired as well. And Tim has anything to add about that?
Yeah, Bill's got a lot of coaching experience. He has been a coach for a select team on the men's side, U19, so kids 19 and under. So, you know, anytime you're playing select at that level, those kids they can just flat out ball. I mean, they're incredible. So the technical part of it, no problem whatsoever. We like his dispositions as well. So we have fingers crossed. We think it's a good one. Certainly a circuitous way to get there, and not our ideal way to get there. But he's got all his background checks cleared out, so he is now coaching full-time in there. Nate Baker has been joining him during this process to make sure that somebody's got the pupil supervision and the coaching licensure and everything's in there. So Bill actually did get a chance to start on the first day of what practice would have been to be there with the student athletes. So there's, despite the, like I said, lack of continuity, there really has been quite a bit of continuity, all things considered. That's a lot of good hustle on Nate's part to get that stuff done.
Let me also add that, so just some changes that you need to recognize. So Donna first, we're adding 5 days to Donna's contract. Really probably should be adding 10. But honestly, I think it's great to add 5 days, and if we feel like it had put through the year, that in fact we probably need to add 5 more. I may come back to you at some point in the future for that. We can talk about that then. But she's doing incredible work beyond the scope of a special ed director, really truly taking on student services. Every day, every year, we're getting more and more. We're learning more about what she can do, what she's capable of, and our relationship and trust is growing, and that I think is allowing more opportunities for her, I think, to grow and do other things. And what I love about Donna, she frequently says to me, let me help you. Give me a chance to help you and do some different things so she wants to do different things. She really wants to take on more. And I want to honor that and give her that opportunity to do that. So she's just recently taken on this idea of all the interviewing for subs. So that's kind of a big deal, more sub teachers for us. So I think that in and of itself will probably eat up 3 to 4 of those days actually in and of itself. So that's a big deal already. So, but that takes time off of me and allows me to be able to do some of the other things, the additional things that have been kind of added on. I've had on as a result of the last year and some of the things we've done. So just wanted to throw that out there. You read what I wrote about John Gudgel. This is what he's been working. Matt has taken out of his building budget. I think it probably needs to be out of the normal appropriated budget for personnel, and so this will do that so that we can make sure that that's happening. And I think we're more than getting our money's worth with John as a counselor. The amount of effort and time and everything he brings to the school district and community. I would hate to not honor him for everything he's done and then say, guess what, we don't have the money for you this year to work as much. So we're going to effectively cut your pay. We can't do that. I think John's deserves that and a minimum respect from us, and so that's why I'm recommending it. And then Robert Brody, just recently, this is a recent change. You may not have seen this when you first saw the agenda, so let me throw that out there. I think Susan probably sent you an email this afternoon about it. But we just learned that Robert has military experience, and so there's contractual language that says if you, depending on how many years of military experience you have, you can up in steps. So that's why this is amended this month.
All right. Any questions or any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Sean,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Aida.
Yes. All right. Moving on to board communications, 5.1. The OSBA Capital Conference is coming up November 13th through 16th. And it's time to appoint a delegate and an alternate. Anybody want to volunteer to take any of those positions? And I'm running over to my phone because I texted Sylvia to see if she had any desire.
So it starts on a Sunday.
Yeah, but Monday, it's just a
It's an
few
evening.
sessions and.
What we typically do is go on Monday and Tuesday. Some people occasionally will stay till Wednesday, but not typically.
Do you remember which day is the day the delegate?
It's one of the two.
Is it Monday or Tuesday?
I think it's Tuesday morning.
Is it Tuesday morning? Okay.
Yeah. Or
The delegate what?
the delegate goes to the delegates meeting.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. I said that so quickly, but.
Well, yeah, because I can't make
Monday
Monday, but
afternoon.
I plan to be there on Tuesday.
The other, somebody already decided, the schedules.
So you can be there Tuesday, but not Monday. Would you say, Sean?
Yeah, well, I can be there. On Monday, the Ohio Department of Higher Education is having a conference
Oh, good.
that they've invited me to. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in Columbus for the Capitol Conference. I might go over to that one as well,
Yeah.
go back and forth. I think there's a thing out in Columbus State. So that, yeah, so I'm definitely gonna be there both days, whether I'm at the Capitol Conference all day Monday.
Actually, if you tell each question of the other one, then you don't have to do it.
Yeah, right. But, so that's why I'm curious about which day the delegate. I mean, someone else is welcome to do it, I know I've
I
done
think
it in
it's
the past.
first thing Tuesday morning, honestly.
Does that sound right?
You can find out right now if you want.
I'm looking right now.
I don't think it's the first day, because
It's Monday afternoon.
I don't remember spending.
Sylvia's not sure she's gonna even be able to be there, so she's,
Okay.
yeah. I'm happy to be the alternate.
Or would it be OSBA Capital Conference?
That's what I need to do.
Right. And I'm happy to be the delegate if no one wants that responsibility. I just want to make sure I'm there.
Let's do Sean for the time being, so we can get this item off
Yeah.
the agenda, and then
Sounds
we
good.
can rejigger it if we need to, once we actually circle on the date. So we have Sean, and then Aida as the alternate. Good.
All right. So we're looking to set a date for board work session in September. That's the 22nd.
Is that a-
That's a
That's
Thursday.
That's
And are we saying, are we talking?
So that would be the
Thursday.
before, like the second board
Yeah.
meeting, okay.
And stay to 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, well, we don't have to, I guess, gosh.
What?
Stick to the 7
Whether we
o'clock.
stay to 7, or whether we start earlier, since it's last month.
Since it's an unusual, if it works for people.
I can do it, but I probably couldn't commit to much before 6.
Okay, does that work?
6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Sure. I think I have an early morning flight.
If you say
next
5,
day.
I could say 5, but maybe wouldn't make it.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to say 5.
Yeah, well, let's just do 6 then.
6 o'clock.
Okay, so the 22nd, 6 o'clock.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in terms of topics that I think we need to discuss, it would be nice to have more conversation at that point about some of the, like, about this facilities, and you'll have a chance to see all the statement of qualifications that are out there, and we can talk in a work session about that. Fine.
Great, okay.
Okay, it's Monday at 2:30.
Oh, it is Monday at 2:30, Sean.
Well, let's just put it down there. Yeah.
And you're the delegate and you're the alternate.
Okay, Green County Career Center.
I was not at the last Green County Career Center board meeting, so I have not to report.
Okay. Any other board member items?
I have one more thing, if you don't mind, before you move on to the. So I forgot to say that there are now, give a quick thank you, because there are banners supporting our schools all over town now. And so if you go around town here, really awesome, because and I have to thank Gina Marie Cox, who was really the instigator of all this, you know. She's the one that really got this going and had an interesting idea. She has the business J Cox, and this is a lot of the work she does, and she offered to do this idea to raise private funds to be able to support it.
Oh, that's great.
And so she is working on that right now still, to be able to support this. And so they got enough banners for the entire town, and you know they're going to put them up at the village offices. Then I want to thank the Village of Yellow Springs for supporting that, and for the village workers taking the time all day today and early in the morning to get out and put those signs all up, and they look wonderful. And I want to thank the Yellow Springs Chamber for facilitating a lot of discussion. I think they were involved financially as well in supporting this work. too. And so all of those entities really were a big factor in this. And I think the logo looks great, and I think it's going to be a really nice thing for our kids and for our community. And I was able to come and talk to our new teachers today and say, what a great community you live in. That how many communities are out there putting up banners, not about football or about cheerleaders or about anything. We're out there putting up banners about our school system as a whole because we are proud of our fearless thinkers and what we're doing here in Yellow Springs. And I think they were pretty pumped. Eli was in the room, I think, at the time, and excited about it. So it's a great thing, and makes me proud to be part of Yellow Springs. And this is a community that supports education through and through, and is 100% behind our schools. And so
You have a picture of that banner?
I can get one. You guys want to hold for a second? Only place I know to find it is on. Well, actually, I might be able to get it on Twitter. I'll go to Facebook real quick.
Well, they're everywhere in town if you can't.
Yeah, well, I just lost my power, so.
That's okay.
So
Sorry.
we're adjourned.
Yeah. It never plugged in.
Oh,
So we are closing the business portion of the meeting, and the board members going into executive session for another session regarding superintendent's evaluation. So
Can I grab mine very quickly before we go into that, and as you're on your way out the door?
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, we got that, that's great.
Was that your unidentified cell phone in this list?
Probably.
You ought to have your cell phone.